Welcome to the Tech Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brent Chapman, and today we're tackling one of the biggest drivers of change in technology, cloud and DevOps. And joining me to discuss that and more from the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board, Chief Information Officer, George Williams. Welcome to the show, George.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
George, you played basketball in college. Have you ever had a PA intro like that?
Never once. I think the only time I've ever had any kind of intro like that was when I was in the sixth grade at an AAU tournament, and all the parents were kind of going crazy. That's about it, though. They make kids feel good back then.
They let a parent get on the mic.
Exactly.
Actually, ironically enough, they let me do that a couple of years ago, and I did it for all the kids. Perfect. I don't know, George. I had this really awkward voice growing up, but as I've gotten older, it's turned into this very grovelly PA-like, and they love it when I do it. So I thought you would enjoy that. So, George, tell us a little bit about the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board and your role as Chief Information Officer.
Well, the board itself is formerly the Liquor Control Board. And then in 2012, when cannabis was legalized recreationally in the state, we inherited that new aspect and the new vice, so to speak. And we didn't even have to change our initials. LCB is still LCB. It's just now liquor and cannabis, not just liquor control. We do all the enforcement regulation and education surrounding all the licensing for liquor and cannabis, vape, and tobacco for the state. And we have 20,000 retailers for liquor, about 1,900 retailers for cannabis, and who knows how many vapor and tobacco outlets are out there. They all need licenses, they all need regulation and all the things, and that's what we do.
So you woke up one morning and they said, "Congratulations, Liquor Board, you get cannabis."
That's exactly what happened in 2012 after the big vote. They didn't know where to put it. You think they might put it with agriculture, but nope.
No.
They decided we had the regulation experience, so they gave it to us.
Well, you would think logically and logic and government doesn't always go together. But logically you would think that, it's going to be governed very similar to the way that alcohol and tobacco are. So put them in the same group. And so
I think that's where we end up going. So
but it's still got to be kind of a surprise when you're doing one thing and you're doing it well. And then it's like, okay, now take on this whole new thing that nobody's ever dealt with really before, because you're kind of one of the leading. It's not like you can call up 30 other states and say, how do you do this?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we get called a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say.
States, and we provide consulting to all those government agencies in other states that haven't gone recreational on how we even approach it. Some are doing it better, some aren't, but even states that just do medical only, like Iowa does medical only, and they have literally only 2 producers.
Really?
So their paradigm, or 2 legal producers rather, let's qualify that. Their paradigm and perspective is a lot different than ours, when we have literally hundreds, if not even thousands.
I assume they have to also have similar rules and licenses.
Well, yeah, of course they do, but their tracking of it, their enforcement and regulation of it is much different.
There's 2. It's easy.
2. Versus
it's a lot easier, yeah.
Yeah, so
that's awesome. Well, that is definitely I always say that you want your work environment to be fun and entertaining and challenging, and when you get different things like that, it definitely makes it that. So that's awesome. So George, you played basketball at Central Washington and Spokane Community College, and you even coached football, basketball, and track. Man, after my own heart with the coaching, I love it. What drew you into athletics at that level, and what did you take away from competing and coaching that still sticks with you today?
Well, drawing me in, of course, I grew up in a athletic family and I was the tallest guy in the neighborhood, and basketball kind of was where I went, even though I did play football in high school. Um,
Hold on, real quick, George. For those who can't tell, George is 6'4", right? 6'5".
6'5", yeah, six
Yeah,
five.
he's 6'5", and he's a big dude. And I would say, why not um, offensive tackle George? But I
Yeah,
think you're probably going to tell me that isn't exactly what it was like when you were growing up.
no, I think you hit that right on the head. It's about 150 pounds different, is what it is. So I look like an offensive lineman now, but back then I was, not even a tight end. I was
Yeah,
just a
that's
tall
right.
stick figure back in the high school days. Even in the college, I was only right around 200 pounds. I'm,
Do
considerably
you know,
larger now.
that's interesting you bring that up. Do you know what the kind of D1 build for a tight end is now?
Oh, it's
6'3" to
270,
six seven,
yeah.
220 to like 250. Like
Oh, yeah. So,
that's incredible.
oh, I have a funny story about that. When I went to college at Central, I wanted to play football. I did. I went to basketball, but I wanted to play football. I was going to try out for the team until I met the third string tight end. And he was quite literally twice my size. And I
Oh,
saw him and I'm like, yeah, I'm
nope.
not going to try. And he's third string. And I'm like, I have no chance at all. And I just gave that up immediately. And so, yeah, I just
They
focused
didn't they
on
didn't want like a Travis Kelsey type tight end. They wanted the big
not,
blocking,
not
basically
even.
offensive
I mean,
tackle at tight end.
I would have just been subject to many pancakes if that would have been, yeah, I don't need to involve myself in that.
Uh, so
Oh,
so
but
just tell me, how does that kind of
yeah.
translate to what you're doing today and
Well,
as a technology leader today?
so in technology, just like anything else, right, you build a team, and being part of a team as well as coaching to a team is all about building the team and their skill sets and their potential to meet objectives, and that's exactly what I do in the state right now for my team. I try to help my team fulfill their potential and their various skill sets. And as all things technology, those skill sets are pretty specialized. So I create an environment where they are able to pursue more specialized trainings to build out their skill sets, cross train into other skill sets. I'm in a smaller agency, so I need people who can do more than one kind of job. Um, and you can't have single points of failure. So coaching is still very much part of my life,
That's right.
and that's learning how to coach children is not that much different than coaching adults. It's just about making sure that you provide that positive feedback that helps them grow, and that's
You know, it's
exactly.
it's interesting that you bring that up, George. Early in my career out of college, I actually coached a varsity high school soccer team for 2 years. I was kind of like trying to find a job, and so was doing that on the side with doing some other stuff. And I found that as I got older and started to get into leadership and management, that experience really, really helped me draw upon how to kind of at least get started in that, right? There's so
Absolutely.
much similarities to finding what a player is good at or a team member is good at and putting them in a position to succeed, right? That's sports, getting to work together as a team,
All people
selflessness.
centered, and that's exactly what it should be. And leadership is about the people that you're working with, and who work for you. And in the military, I spent 25 years in the military, right? So it's all about that servant leadership. I serve them, and my job is to facilitate the environment that allows them to grow, and that's what I try and do every single day.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be my next question. First, I want to thank you for your service. How did your time in the Army shape the way you approach leadership and decision making? And especially in high pressure situations, technology leaders often have to move fast and get it right. How did that experience, and just tell us a little bit about your journey? I think you said 25 years, is that
25
right?
years,
So
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, just talk a little bit about how that has impacted also how you make decisions and just how you operate today.
So the military is a leadership factory, right? That's what they do. They build leaders, and those leaders progress through the ranks to build other leaders. And the military is also a pressure cooker. Every situation you find yourself in can literally be life and death. And so you're faced with not saying that everything is, a lot of it's just routine, but you do face life and death situations. I've been downrange twice, life and death situations. You face them and you learn how to recognize what's going on. You learn how to make the decisions based on the training and experience that you have. Oftentimes, so it's wrong. Sometimes the things you do
Yeah.
are wrong, but you learn to adjust on the fly. And just like in technology, oftentimes what's presented to you isn't actually what the problem is. And
That's
so you
right.
have to learn how to look at what's going on, find out what the root cause is, not just the surface problem, and then deal with the root cause, which will then correct what's being presented. So, you have to make those decisions as quickly as possible.
That's
You create a adaptability within your teams to do
I
that.
had a CEO say to me one time after we had an incident or something happened, and he said to me, he goes, "Why did you make that decision?" And I said, "Well, it was the best decision at the time with the information that I had. Had I known what you know now, I would not have made that decision."
I mean, how many times have we said that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Ask that
so
question
true,
like,
though.
well, with the information I had, that was the decision I made. And it's
Yeah.
all about decisiveness, right? You can't waffle about some of
Nah.
these things. You have to react. You have to be able to take action and move forward. If it's wrong, you course correct. And that's exactly what we do as technology leaders.
Well, and I would say, and you probably have this too, at Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board, but I felt that, those decisions weren't always necessarily all on my shoulders, right? Because you have, like, in the case of, like, I was a CIO of a financial institution, right? So if there were issues with security or breaches or whatever, there's other people in the company that you can lean on and help with those type of
Of course.
situations and what the best things to do are. Yeah, you got to act quickly, but that partnership and working with others is incredibly important, and I imagine that's incredibly important in the Army, in sports, right, as well.
It should never be a sole decision by you, right? It should be part of a larger equation of people in the army have quick reaction forces, right? You have people designated as a team to react to certain situations. The same thing is true in the state government. In my team, we have business partners. If a problem occurs with a system, it's not just IT reacting to it, it's IT and business working together to figure out what's going on, what systems are affected, what processes are affected, how do we immediately deal with the situation and get them back to some sort of green or functionality? And then is there other back end work that we need to work on to make sure it doesn't happen again in the future? And it's never done in a vacuum. And if you're doing that in a vacuum, then you're setting yourself up for failure as well as your business lines.
Yeah.
So definitely got to work together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. George, going from athletics and the Army into a career in technology isn't the most obvious path, I guess, if your discipline in the military was. But
Oh yeah.
what first sparked your interest in IT, and how did you make that transition?
So as my former boss used to say, he was an accidental CIO, and I became
I
an
love that.
accidental signal officer in the Army.
What is
And
a signal officer?
so a signal officer is essentially the CIO for a
Okay.
unit in the military. And
And
so
how
my
big would
job,
give us an example of a unit? How big would a unit
so
be?
anywhere from battalion size, which is about 800 people, to brigade, which is about 4,000 people, to joint force headquarters, which is thousands and thousands and thousands of people. The signal officers that are involved in planning communications and technology for commanders to make decisions. And that communications and technology includes radios, satellite, computers, and everything in between, from handheld radios to communication security, cryptography, things like that, all incorporated all into one resource manager which is a signal officer,
Yeah,
which is what a CIO is, right? So it's the same
exactly.
exact thing. It's just not called CIO in or Chief Information Officer. It's a signal officer. At least that's for the Army. And so I became I got into signal in the military by pure accident. It was a computer glitch at when I first joined. By some crusty old E7 was trying to find me a job in supply of all things, but he hit the wrong key and locked the computer and had to change it, and it transferred me into satellite communications, and that worked, and that led me down the path of technology
So,
30
so
years
George,
ago.
let me get this right. Your career as a CIO is based on an error.
Exactly. I know you couldn't even make that up, right? It's the stuff movies are made up. That's exactly what happened. It was a computer error that got
That's
me
awesome.
into
Oh,
technology.
even better. It
Yeah,
was a computer error.
and it
George,
DOS, yeah,
I don't
a
want to
DOS
be
made it.
I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but maybe the Matrix
Maybe, yeah.
predefined this for you.
It was an old DOS-based computer system at the
Yeah.
MEPS processing
Oh,
station.
not the
And,
Matrix. Okay,
oh
gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
so
not the Matrix.
it's hilarious.
Little bit before the Matrix, right?
Oh yeah,
Well, George, I do want to get to our topic
sure.
today, which is cloud and DevOps. And so, over the past decade, more so 10 to 20 years, let's call it, cloud adoption is in like the last 20 years. It's in the last 10 years, it shifted from being an option to being the backbone of enterprise strategies to being the thing, right? And it's moving to the cloud isn't the end game anymore. Like it kind of in the past, it was like, I don't know. I mean, I had 3 CIO jobs where the first thing I did when I came in was move us to the cloud, right? And now it's shifted into something else because everyone's on the cloud. And, most of their infrastructure is already cloud based. So it's about modernization and leveraging cloud native services and to drive agility and scale, going from just getting on it to now utilizing it to be more efficient for your business. So how do you see organizations striking the right balance between simply lifting and shifting to the cloud versus truly modernizing their applications and services in the cloud?
So my perspective, of course, is public sector, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of what we do surrounds budgeting and the cost optimization piece as well as the modernization. So those three pillars are things that we have to look at constantly. So do we have a budget, right? Lifting and shifting from on-prem into the cloud is an expensive proposition because not only is it migrating all of that data and services, but are the applications even cloud ready? So you have to modernize all those applications that could potentially go to the cloud, as well as the business processes that are sitting on older systems that are on-prem. You have to modernize those business workflows also. And so it's not just a matter of moving. You have to have a very well thought out plan, and it has to be considered from all aspects with the business lines and the agency's priorities, and then do we even have the budget for it? So those things all have to be considered. So it's a lot, over 10 years, you're looking at probably three, four, five different efforts to move parts of it to the cloud. And
That's
then
right.
on top of that, as you said, 10 years ago, people were like, oh, we got to go to the cloud. It's the next best thing since sliced bread. It's going to make everything more efficient, more cost effective, only to find out that moving data from your computer up and down to the cloud turns out to cost money and costs a lot of money. The ingress and egress charges that nobody talks about was how cloud platforms suddenly made a ton of their margin without ever really talking about it. And those state agencies were like, hey, we just moved all of our stuff to the cloud and we now can't afford to use it because we can't.
That's what Amazon
It.
Glacier is for, George.
Well, oh yeah.
But I actually have a funny story about that. You bring that up. So I was the CIO of a company, and this was fairly not early, but Azure and all. We were in
Yeah.
Azure, and Microsoft was just being so great to us. And then I asked one time, like, why are you doing? Hey, you're the largest consumer of Azure cloud services in the state. This wasn't in Texas, it was in a different state. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're not that big of a company. what are we doing wrong? Well, my gosh, we had things duplicated
Yeah.
here and there, and data was going up and down, and it was like
But
it was out of control. But
yeah.
you, it took people a lot of time to understand exactly what you're talking about, and some mistakes made.
Oh yeah,
Um,
mistakes are painful, and they're always often the best teacher. But what you're also talking about is the cost optimization piece that we now have to do. How much is duplicated? How much did we over provision in terms of
yeah, exactly.
memory, in terms of servers, in terms of storage, and all the things? And then, do we really need to keep moving this data back and forth? Can we just manipulate it in the cloud and leave it there? And can it be accessed by our users in a meaningful way without having to bring it down to their computer, and who's responsible for that charge? So you have all these things that you have to think about, and oftentimes that's transparent to the business lines even though it shouldn't be. And so you got to tell them, hey, that's a great idea and it makes life easier for you, but it also costs an arm and a leg, and I don't have the budget to support it anymore, so we're
Would
gonna
you
have to
agree though the providers are also like I feel like 10 years ago the providers were like shh, just
yeah.
keep spending. Now they'll call you and say, "Hey, do you need that there? And we've noticed this is going up." And they're like they're much more aware of that as well and seem to be more customer focused on. No, back then it was like
No,
faucets on, let it run.
that's exactly right. So I think now they realize that in a budget constrained environment, especially like Washington State, we nobody is willing to just spend freely, especially for cloud
Yeah.
costs. And so
And they want good
that's a good,
partner. They want
yeah,
good partners
good
that are
partner, right?
yeah.
Exactly. And they're doing a pretty good job helping us, especially when we ask, but they also come up with ideas on their own. Hey, let's make this environment more scalable for you and make sure that we're actually optimizing all of the licensing points that you have and all of that. So that we have great partners in Microsoft and AWS now. So we're
They've picked a lot of these companies have realized that if they show they know what a senior level executive like yourself is focused on, right? It's
yeah,
there's a lot of cost management. So if they can show value in saving cost and scalability, guess what you're going to do? You're
yeah,
going to get budget to spend more,
exactly. Yeah,
right?
we can show the return
That's
on
the
value.
trick.
Absolutely. So,
But
and
it's
that's
right because they're helping you be a good partner, and then you're going to turn around and you're gonna go, well, heck, I got to add this thing. Well, I'm going to do it with Microsoft because they're going to make sure I'm not overspending. Well, you added spend, so they're making money that way. It's
yeah, exactly.
better to
That's
be honest than it is to
they finally
yeah.
unraveled that secret, and I think that's what they're doing now for sure. And we're doing it with them willingly because that is the right way to do it,
That
to
is
for us to do it. We're investing in our cloud infrastructure. We're investing in our data governance and our overall compute environments to make sure that our user experience is in fact a good one for not only internal users but external users.
George, shifting to automation and DevOps and the cloud. One of the promises of DevOps and cloud adoption more broadly is automation.
Yeah,
So, from infrastructure as a code to CI/CD pipelines, automation is what enables faster delivery and fewer errors.
yeah.
What role do you see automation playing in driving both efficiency and quality, and where should organizations focus first to get real value?
So that DevOps promise, right, from developer through to code promotion to production, with the least amount of hands-on along the way and the least amount of stops. And right now, most people, they have developers, they promote into a test environment then gets checked out, goes to pre-prod, or pre-prod goes to production. And that's if you just have three environments. You could have even more. And the idea is to let a developer do all their work, get it all tested, and get it all, do that code promotion in a seamless, automated way. So you get from development to production in the least amount of time possible. And if you have those efficiencies with AI and some other areas that can scrutinize and test and do all the things necessary for applications that provide accuracy, then that just speeds up the overall efficiency for app development and code development. will it ever get there for state government? I think there are some agencies that are doing it pretty well. There are others. We're not doing that in that automated way yet. We're doing DevOps in a way that tries to blend the code developers, the vendors, the code developers, as well as the infrastructure folks into one team to have a better process, even though that there are still stops along the way. I think that as you start working as a team, you start finding those areas to bring automation in a better way. I believe that some of the areas where AI can automate things better, like code review. I think code review is a huge area that AI
Yes.
can absolutely speed things up, especially if it has a known good in its language model to draw against. And if you have a known good that this is the source of truth, and that source of truth can be automated against code review, then there's less chance for errors along the way. And so,
George, you and I, let's do this in a couple months. Let's have a separate conversation about AI because I think we could have a great conversation. But
sure.
the reason why I think it would be great to have it with you is obviously you're knowledgeable about it, but also about the difference between public sector and private sector use of AI and some of the
Oh
restrictions.
yeah,
I think that's a great conversation. I do want to move along to the next
sure.
question, which is we've talked about modernization, we've talked about automation, but at the end of the day, these aren't just technical exercises. They're meant to drive real business value. We're not just doing this stuff, George, so that we can have a job.
Yeah,
Well, that's not bad. Whether it's faster delivery, reduced cost, or improved resilience, organizations need to connect their cloud and DevOps investments back to measurable outcomes. So, how should leaders think about measuring the success of their cloud and DevOps initiatives? And what outcomes matter the most in the business to the
the
business?
number one outcome that I can think of right now is user experience.
Yes.
And I say user experience in a very broad sense, that because there are different kinds of users, right? There are internal users that, the business lines and how they use the systems to perform their job functions and provide services to the public. Then there's the public user experience and logging into your portal and navigating the licensing applications and payments and other things that they're doing. So is it seamless? Is it something that while they don't necessarily enjoy paying money, they are also not dreading having to log into your portal because it's a mess and you can't navigate it in any sort of way that's meaningful or intuitive. And so for me, a number one metric that we use, right, is just how many complaints are we getting in terms of people logging in and being able to do their business in some sort of easy and usable way that makes sense and is not creating a lot of questions or tickets or calls. Um, we use that all the time. And then on top of that, I use the internal KPI of how many service tickets am I getting from our internal users that the system is not performing the way it's supposed to be doing. And how do we to differentiate between an actual process problem which the business would be handling versus an actual technical problem that either access or the system is actually having some sort of glitch that we need to deal with. And so user experience in all its forms is what I use currently to help measure the success in the administration of these things and the modernization of these workflows that we're trying to facilitate for the business. I think that that's a conversation. It's not just something for me, but it's something for the agency because the agency has a mandate from the state to improve user experience for all citizens of Washington. So anybody who uses LCB's platforms needs to be able to do so in a way that allows for them to conduct their business, whatever that is, in a meaningful way that works for them. And so that's what we have to measure against.
And I think it's a great point is the importance of aligning DevOps goals to business KPIs and what's important to the business. And it sounds like
Yeah.
you're doing that there is because that importance, that thing, that focus is different based on your business, right?
Yeah.
It's different from a
100%.
mortgage company to the cannabis and liquor board to whatever, to a sports company to it's different depending on your business. And so I think that you're right. I think that the neat thing about this is that, cloud DevOps done well creates agility, resilience, innovation capacity, and IT efficiency.
All of those things, right? Those are all the goals that we want, especially the resiliency in times of either high traffic or what if there's an outage? How resilient are we to get back to some place where people can access the systems that they need to, or what kind of backups do we have to be able to get the system back online as quickly as possible. So that's what I think of in terms of resiliency, and then making our IT services more efficient to provide the the environment for our business lines to conduct their work. And I don't want them to worry about their computers. I don't want them to worry about their platforms that they're providing services on. I want them to worry about their work. And
Yeah,
then everything else should be transparent to them.
that's
Everything
right.
should work without them having to worry about the technology.
Yeah, that's right. So, George, thank you very much for sharing your expertise today.
Absolutely.
One last fun question before we wrap up. Since the show is got a little sports twist to it and it's called the Tech Quarterback Show, I'm going to ask, who's your favorite quarterback, past or present, and why?
Well, going back to my youth a bit, Jim Zorn was always a
Yeah,
favorite,
it's a good one.
but
Dave Craig.
Dave,
Dave Craig.
Dave Craig right there also. But I think my overall favorite, I'm from San Francisco, so Joe Montana's always got to be a factor in that. But Terry Bradshaw, right? Terry
Yeah.
Bradshaw from the late '70s, early '80s, he was he was just the man that because he was always unapologetically himself. Terry Bradshaw is nobody but Terry Bradshaw. No matter what situation you find him in, he is always Terry Bradshaw. You never mistake him.
And
He's
he's
never
still
trying to.
Terry Bradshaw in
He's
2025
still now, even
on
on
Sunday
TV,
mornings.
still Terry Bradshaw. He's not changed one iota in 40 some odd years. And so I love him for that.
That is really a great point, and I think that that's why some of these guys are long lasting. John Madden was similar.
Yeah,
Charles Barkley
yeah,
is
exactly.
very similar. Shaq is similar. They have personalities. They stand out, and they were great at their time when they were playing. Now, most people, Terry Bradshaw now is that was in the 70s, but
Yeah,
you guys have to understand the dude won 4 Super Bowls.
he did win 4 Super Bowls. Yeah,
And the game was different in the 70s. It wasn't air raid and spread and all that stuff. It was running. And so he did his job, which was manage the offense. That seems to be a bad word today, but I think, and we could talk about this sometimes, so
yeah,
because I go really, really into the nuance of football strategy,
yeah,
but that's shifting now.
yeah.
That it is going back to the game manager. And that if you look at high school football and even in college football now, they've gotten away from the one guy does everything back to the Terry Bradshaw type quarterback.
I love
That's
that
what
for the game.
that. And so, we can appreciate it a little bit more, but he was great. And
He
that
was.
is a great choice. Now, being from Buffalo, Jim Kelly, I would argue, 4 Super Bowls also didn't win them.
Yeah, but it's Buffalo. So
but it is Buffalo. I would agree.
no, you're not wrong, no.
Yeah. Well, George, thank you again for joining
Thank
us
you.
today and sharing your journey from the basketball court and the Army to technology at the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board. Your perspective on cloud DevOps and leadership was great. I'm sure our listeners will take a lot away from this conversation. And to the audience, thanks for tuning in to the Tech Quarterback Show. Be sure to subscribe, share your feedback, and join us next time. Until then, I'm Brent Chapman, and this has been the Tech QB Show. Peace.